Contigo, Perú, emocionado, doy gracias al cielo por darme la vida. Contigo, Perú, eres muy grande, lo seguiré siendo, pues todos estamos contigo, Perú. Sobre mi pecho llevo tus colores, están mis amores, contigo, Perú. Somos tus hijos y nos uniremos, y así triunfaremos contigo, Perú. Unida la costa, unida la costa, unida la sierra, unida la selva, contigo, Perú. Unido el trabajo, unido el deporte, unidos el norte, el centro y el sur. Toma, a triunfar, peruanos, somos hermanos, que se haga victoria nuestra gratitud. Te daré la vida y cuando yo muera, me uniré en la tierra.
Buenas noches, good evening, everybody. Anticonquista Familia, very important tonight on Daughters of Fidel, Sons of Fidel, Los Hijos de Fidel, that we can examine what's going down with our sisters and brothers leading a mighty struggle across Peru. All of Latin America is really on fire, leftist fire, anti-imperialist fire, revolutionary fire. The fire of Tupac Amaru, the fire of Mercedes La Negra Sosa, the fire of the MAS, Evo Morales, y todos los ancestros in Bolivia. So we have tonight in Peru, César Burga, who's one of the leaders and Peruvian sociologists following this situation very closely. And of course, Kayla Pop, whose roots go back from the Bronx and Queens to Peru. And so they're gonna bring us up to date on what's happening on the ground over there. Cesar, thanks for joining us. And Kayla, how are you both feeling?
Thank you very much, Danny, Kayla, for your invitation. And well, I hope to talk about the situation of Peru and to share the situation of my country and the political crisis that we are crossing right now.
My heart is very heavy for this situation because ever since the inception of Peru, it has been plagued through the conquest, through US imperialism. I mean, if we're looking at the political situation today, and we're going to go further into that with Cesar, but its roots start not only just from the 30 years ago with the US-backed Alberto Fujimori, who did the 1993 constitution that installed neoliberalism, but throughout Peru's history of exploitation at the hands of foreigners. And so once again, I'm very glad that you're here today with us, Cesar, so you can give us some light and give our viewers some light about what's going on in Peru. I think that here in the United States and most of North America, there's not much understanding about Peru. I mean, the left knows about Bolivia, knows about Chile, Argentina, Venezuela, but Peru kind of gets missed. And it's very unfortunate because this is a country of rich history going back hundreds of years. And so again, thank you for coming and thank you for being able to shed some light with us today.
So Cesar, last week, November 9th, we know Martín Vizcarra was a representative of neoliberal forces, pro-imperialist forces selling off this mighty prize in the global chessboard that is Peru. And I think it was 68 Congress members who voted to impeach Vizcarra, but the majority of those Congress members are also being investigated for corruption charges. So take us into what appears to be an intra-bourgeois fight for power in Peru.
Yes, it's a political crisis that has started in 3 years ago, but it's a general crisis of corruption of all the Peruvian political system. Um, in 2017, it has been discovered several cases of corruption of the Peruvian presidents, Peruvian regional presidents, of several parliamentaries, of several politics. So right now, all these corruption cases has exploded and has been published to all the people by the media, and that has provoked an opinion, a public opinion against corruption, and all a mobilization of the population, principally of the young people, against the corruption, but against all the political system. This political crisis, which has started in 2017, has a first critical moment with the destitution of Pedro Pablo Kuczynski. The Congress, try to accuse the president of corruption, and the president has to renounce to his position, and then Martin Vizcarra has take the government of Peru. But the corruption was not only of Pedro Pablo Kuczynski, but also of the Congress, as you have said. There are a lot of Congress. Yes, there are a lot of members of the Congress which are investigated by corruption. But before this new Congress, there has been also another Congress, a previous Congress, which has been led by Fujimori, by the daughter of the dictator Fujimori. And this previous Congress has also been conformed by several Congresses which has been accused of corruption. So Martin Vizcarra take this flag against corruption, and he closed the Congress, and he called to elections for a new Congress, which has been elected in January of this year. And this new Congress has taken the decision recently, a week ago, of the destitution of the president by an impeachment that is not legally correct, because there's no such a figure as the impeachment in Peruvian constitution. But because Martin Vizcarra has also been accused of several cases of corruption, of receive $1 million of an enterprise to promote and public investment in construction, in building, in all these enterprises. He has been accused by the Congress, and the Congress finally has approved the impeachment of Martin Vizcarra, and Manuel Merino, a member of the Congress who has not representativity for all the population, has taken the power of Peru, and the population has started a mobilization, because, as you said, all the Congress is also associated to corruption. There are a lot of members of the Congress which are accused of corruption, and the population has the idea that the first source of corruption is the Congress. So all the mobilizations has this first reason, that the Congress has not any representativity to take the power of the country. So this is the first reason of all the mobilizations and of all this political crisis. But it's also true that Martin Vizcarra is associated to several cases of corruption. He has been interviewed by several communication media, and he has stated that he is not linked to all these people that are accusing him to receive money, to receive $1 million, but it has been revealed a lot of information that has proof that Martin Vizcarra is actually linked to all these people. So Martin Vizcarra is not clean of corruption, is not free of corruption. He's also linked to this problem. And the answer of all the population is, in effect, this mobilization against the corruption of all the state, of all the Peruvian political system. It's not only a mobilization against the Congress. It has been in first place a mobilization against the Congress, but now it's a mobilization against all the political system, all the Peruvian political system.
You know, these protests have brought out people from all over the country. You are seeing people in this, the jungle, the selva, or the mountainous area, la sierra, and also the coast. People everywhere all over Peru are rising up in massive numbers. I believe it was Friday that there was a national march in Peru, and it was one of the largest marches in all of Peruvian history. And unfortunately, on November 14th, the Peruvian police murdered 2 young men. They murdered 24-year-old Inti Sotelo Camargo, a student studying human rights, and 22-year-old Brian Pintado Sanchez. Both of these youth have joined the list of martyrs, Peruvian martyrs, fighting for a new Peru, fighting for their homeland, our homeland. But these young men have had so much life to live, so much to do with their future, to be with their friends and their family. They shouldn't have to die to fight for their country. And so we honor their lives today and tomorrow and forever. We honor their lives, and we're going to demand, and people on the ground are demanding, justice from their murderers. Justice at the hands of the police is where they were murdered. And so before we continue with this, I would like to do a moment of silence and to show you guys who these men were, who these valiant men were that died. So Cesar, can you give us some information about these street mobilizations? As we've seen, there was a lot of momentum, especially in just 1 week. You've seen the largest national march, and there's another one planned for tomorrow. Can you tell us, where has the movement gone? Is it a movement yet? What are some of the demands that people are coming around, and are these popular? Do you see this as a movement of the people fighting for something, or is it just a vague idea where different groups are coming out? Tell us a little bit more about this.
Yes, I think it's both of them. In the first moment, it has been an spontaneous mobilization, but in all this week, it's really impressive how people can learn in a week about the political objectives and about political problems. In all this week, the movement has taken more sense of its goals, of its objectives, and now this idea of a new constitution, of a new political constitution, is being assimilated in the movement. Yes, it's true that in the first moment, on Monday or Tuesday, when the first mobilization have taken place, the movement was disorganized, was um, uh, a group of several movements, each one with its own agenda, with its own reivindications. But now, the idea, as I said, the idea of a new constitution as the first or the main measure to fight against corruption is being more and more incorporated to the reivindications of the population that is mobilized, and this because the people have realized that this problem of corruption has increased with the dictatorial constitution of Alberto Fujimori in 1993. This constitution has give a lot of power to great enterprises, and with this power, the great enterprises of Peru and of other countries have got the power to corrupt political all the political class in Peru. So people have realized that there's a link between neoliberalism and corruption, and that it's necessary to change the political constitution. It's not that all the movement has take this idea and now defend the idea of a new constitution, but it's more than a week ago. I mean, in this week, there are a lot of people which has realized that there is a link in the between the political system and the economical system. So I think that the movement is developing an agenda of a new constitution, which must be the the creation of the people, of the reivindication of the popular classes.
Thank you, Cesar. Um, just to share with our audience here, it's such a long history of neoliberal governments. Kayla and Cesar, you can jump in here with any of the history, but we remember Fujimori and the massacre of different forces of
Yes.
liberation in the years of Fujimori. We've had 3 presidents now in the past week. The latest president is a World Bank guy. So we're talking about decades and decades, if not centuries, of corrupt state, a state with antithetical interest to the people. When's the last time that Peru had revolutionary leadership? You'd probably have to go back to Tupac Amaru. So the World Bank guy who they put into power today, Francisco Sagasti, do you expect, Cesar, that the people are going to remain inquieto? Are they going to remain in the streets? Are they going to trust another títere, another sellout, otro de eso, de los hombres, de los gringos? What is your political prognosis for the upcoming weeks and months?
I think that it may be a very short pacification. Yes, it's true that people consider that the members of the Congress, which has voted for the impeachment of Vizcarra, are the main responsible of this crisis. It's true, but it's also true that they don't trust in the Congress. So even if Francisco Sagasti was against the impeachment, I think that it not save him from being criticized by the population. And the other reason that make me consider that this pacification is going to be very short is that people have developed their political conscience in this week. I'm absolutely sure that this has happened because the I mean the critic to the political system is really, really radical, is to the base of the political system that is this political constitution, and also to the economic model. Is more and more a critic to the economic model. So I don't think that Francisco Sagasti is in the conditions of making a transition government in conditions that allow him to have a long pacification period in our country. I think that he should have a week or a month of pacification, maybe in Christmas. He could have he could profit this Christmas festivity to have a pacification period. But the crisis and the reason of this crisis are structural. So if he does not take if he yes if he doesn't take measures to fight against this structural problem, he will not have a pacification a pacificated country. And he is a representant, he's a representant of this political system. I mean, his political party, that is the Purple Party, the Partido Morado, has a political ideology that is political liberalism and economical liberalism. So he's not really against all this political crisis, or at least he has not the appropriate diagnostic of the political crisis. His ideology prevent him for taking the correct measures to fight against this structural problem. So I don't think that he has really idea of how to solve this problem. And I don't think, in conclusion, I don't think that he will resolve this political problem. And yes, there should be a month or 2 months of pacification, but I think the political conscience that the population has taken in this week is going to grow and to contribute to a more radical critique to the system that cannot be prevented by this government.
Last year in November, we saw Peru's southern neighbor Chile. People were rising up against austerity measures that the neoliberal government was proposing there. But the people got fired up, they got united, and they started rallying behind a call for a constitutional assembly, a popular constitutional assembly, and to create a new constitution to throw away the one created by the fascist dictator Augusto Pinochet. So, can you tell us, is a movement like that viable for Peru? And we'd also like to know, on April 11th in 2021, we know that there's going to be Peruvian elections, and many people have been calling for the new, whoever interim president will be, to respect the general elections that will be coming up. We have candidates like Veronica Mendoza, César Acuña, Marco Arana, and others. Can you tell us a little bit about some of these candidates? Whom are you seeing more viable to assume the presidency, and what ultimately they stand for?
Yes, to start with the first question, I just was wondering why the political crisis in Chile was more radical. And I try to make a comparison between that crisis and Peruvian political crisis. And yes, even if there are some things that are similar, that are common between those movements, there are also some differences that I think they are important. The first one is that social organization in Chile was much more developed than Peruvian social organization. And that's an important difference, because we try to make a popular assembly for make a constitution, but we have not this popular organization. So this is a really important difference, that doesn't allow us to to go and advance in our objectives as we would like to. Uh, but we think that this political crisis has opened um, the conditions to construct, to build, to develop this social movement. I think this is the positive aspect of this crisis. So even if we are not going to arrive at the same moment of the political crisis in Chile, I think that we are starting that road. We are starting that long road toward a popular constitution that is finally what we want to create, what we want to develop. Now, talking about the elections in April, um, it's really important because in April, in the next year, we are also going to have 200 years of independency, of political independency. The government which is going to take the power the next year in July, the 28th July, is going to take the power in the same moment, at the same moment that is celebrated, is commemorated the 200 years of political independency. Which one are the political forces that have more chances to arrive to the power? I think that are the left political forces. There has been published several surveys um, which has which have questioned to the people which are their opinions about economical education, education, who has to rule the education, who has to be in charge of the education, if the public system or if the private system, uh, who must be in charge of health, if the public system or if the private system, who has been in charge of several aspects of the economy and of social rights, and the people are answering that is the state, the government, the public system, which has to have the control of all these aspects. Many of them say that the public system must have all the control, that there mustn't be a private investment, for instance, in education or in health. And it's also the consequence of the crisis of COVID crisis, which has showed to the population the worst side of private investment, private hospitals or private clinics. I don't know if the word exists in in English, but these health centers ruled by private enterprises has not allowed to the population to receive attention when they have been affected by COVID, for instance. And there has been a critique to this private health system. And in the side of education, that the great enterprises that have investments in education, for instance, the enterprises of César Acuña, who is a candidate to the government, has not reduced the cost of their education service in this crisis. So there are a lot of students which has not been which couldn't study in this year, um, because yes, they have not the economic resources to pay the education, the higher education, or high school education. And there's a lot of desertion in this year of young people. So families and the population are more and more near uh, to a left political offered than to the right political ideology. And I think that this can be the reason to consider that Veronica Mendoza may be the next president of Peru. She's a candidate of the left, of Peruvian left. Um, she's not a socialist. She's more a social democrat or social liberal. But in our country, which is which has been really um, dominated, ruled by several governments of the right. I think that a government of Veronica Mendoza will be an historical. Yes, he will be. Yes, an historical fact. No, so. I think she has the chances to win this election, but she has a problem that which is that she changed constantly her opinion about political issues. For instance, she said in this political crisis, let's go against all the Congress, but now that Francisco Sagasti has taken the power, she said, well, let's trust in Francisco Sagasti to have a country pacificated. Yeah, yes, like a little like you say, like Bernie Sanders maybe. Yeah. But it's I think in the conditions in we are in our country, it will be positive even if she's not a socialist, but it will be positive to have a government of a left government. Yes.
Very interesting. And when you talk about young people dropping out of school, and when you talk about inadequate health care for those who are positive for COVID-19, you may as well be talking about Los Angeles and New York and Chicago and Houston, because we have the same exact struggles here. And even a social democrat like Bernie or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Ileana Omar, the amount of vilification. I don't know if people out there have been following Fox. Now that it's very clear that Trump, his goose is cooked. He calls himself the golden goose, but what he means is his goose is cooked. I mean, Trump now belongs to the dustbin of history. And what Fox has been doing and these right-wing networks, they've just been attacking Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ileana Omar and all of the progressives, saying that these left-wing forces are going to run Biden. So the red scare, the red baiting here is alive and well. Let me take advantage to say what's up to everyone who joins us. There's been demonstrations across the U.S. in solidarity with Peru. Maybe Kayla can speak about what happened here in New York City yesterday and in Los Angeles. But greetings, saludos revolucionarios to Sofia, Miri, Ximena, Ricky, Leani, Alejandra, Lakesh, Miguel, Mamet, Luca. Lots of interest, Vanessa, Marlene, in understanding what's happening. Your voice, Cesar, and the voice of the Peruvian people are reaching far beyond Peru. We saw the Presidente Maduro has sent a lot of solidarity to the Peruvian people. And he said, geez, there's been 3 presidents in a few days. Guaido. Maybe Juan Guaido will be the 4th president since he proclaim himself president. Let's show an image from yesterday in front of the United Nations and the Peruvian embassy. Kayla was there and can speak to this. I want to show the flag. Give me a second because I'm not finding it right now. Why don't you say a sentence about this flag washing ceremony, Kayla?
Yes, so yesterday there were about 100 Peruvians that came out to the United Nations. And I think it was a really good turnout for the location. So for those who've never been to Manhattan, United Nations is in a really far off, obscure way. It's kind of far away from the train lines. You have to walk very far. And because we're rising again with the coronavirus, many people are weary to take the subways or to head all the way this far into Manhattan. But the Peruvian people, the Peruvian diaspora in the United States, still persisted, and we got a decent turnout. And so there was music playing, people were playing the quena, they were chanting Casa Chun Peru. It was very beautiful, chanting Huayno, but also, you know, a lot of anger and sadness for what is happening there. And so what we did yesterday is that we washed the flag. This is actually the flag. It is now clean. We washed the flag to um, it was a movement that was done during in the protests of the Fujimori regime. They would
Yes.
wash the flag to wash it of its sins, to wash it of the corruption that these politicians have done. And so we did this yesterday, and now our flag is very clean. But even though we are far away, we are here in New York, and it's a different type of hurt because we're away. There's 3.5 million of us in the diaspora, but yet we have so much love for this country that pushed us out, right? And these conditions of neoliberalism had pushed us out. Many of us, not all, but many of us would probably still be in Peru if it wasn't for the corruption and
The
Thank you very much.
the symbolism, Kayla, we were talking about this earlier of washing the flag. I mean, you would have to wash the American flag for 300, 400, 500 years to begin to remove all of the blood, humiliation, massacres, genocides, Holocaust. There's no saving the American flag. The American flag deserves to be buried once and for all, but certainly when we think of the flags of oppressed people, those flags can be resurrected. And those flags, the elites, the elites will try to kidnap, hijack those symbols as well. But the people will be in the streets as well. And we saw two young men die for that flag. So it's really contested terrain to liberate those flags. The next question says that we know that Peru, like much of neoliberal Latin America, Peru has been mired in a neoliberal economic crisis. So many people dispossessed, a country of 30 million, roughly the population of Venezuela, of Iraq. Um, the economic crisis has been there, magnified by the health crisis, COVID-19 pandemic. The political crisis, 3 presidents in a week, the political crisis is there. And then you have the social crisis with these students, young people marching, 2 students shot. And in any revolution in history, it's the coming together of the social crisis, the economic crisis, the political crisis that can push forth the objective conditions for a revolution. But of course, from studying Marxism, we understand too that a social, political, and economic crisis like we saw in Egypt in 2013 does not guarantee a revolution. You can have those societal crises, but what is going to bring forth a revolution is revolutionary leadership in a vanguard and people's organizations united in the street. It's not enough to just have people's anguish and anger, the subjective factor of people's consciousness, and that we need organization. So break down for us people's consciousness. You spoke to it a little bit earlier. Are people looking to join study groups, join organizations? Here we had the experiences of Occupy Wall Street. Black Lives Matter is a movement of millions and millions of people. Do you feel like the leftist forces, the revolutionary forces, are positioning themselves not to call themselves a vanguard now? Only history can call you a vanguard. I mean, people can go out there all day and say, "Somos la vanguardia." What does that mean? History can look back to the 1950s and see that the July 26th movement in Cuba was a vanguard. And the Bolsheviks were a vanguard in the Soviet Union. And the Sandinistas were a vanguard in the 1970s. So are those forces percolating? Are they coming to the surface of Peruvian society?
Well, I just remember when Lenin defined which must be considered uh, la vanguardia, no? And he said that a political party only can be considered well as la vanguardia when he's in the conditions to uh, lead a social movement, the working class, to revolution action, to a revolution program, to the revolution. So yes, it's true that this only happens in the history, and only the history can finally determine if a political party or if a group of people can be considered well the leader of the movement, la vanguardia, as you said. But what I can say, what I can say is that people are getting more conscious, but also the young this young political generation of Marxists are also more and more clear that in the objectives and in the strategy that must be developed to arrive to a new society, to a more free society. Um, in the last decades, the left has been conduced by an old left, uh, which has abandoned, which has forgotten the socialist objectives uh, of the past. He has been defeated. It was this is the generation of the past of the 20th century left, which is very respectful, but which has forgotten, as I say, the socialist program and the socialist objective. This new generation of left people, of left youngs, of Marxists are more convinced that the necessity that the final objective is the fight for a socialist society. But me as a part of this generation, I consider that contrarily to the opinion of many analysts, which consider that all the objectives conditions are exist to start a revolution. I think that the main condition does not exist, and the main condition is the organization of the people, the social movement, which must fight for this revolutionary objective. And even if now we are not in the conditions to fight for a socialist program, I think that we are in the conditions to develop this social organization of the working class, of the students, of the self-employed people, of the small entrepreneurs, which are several in our country, and which must conform uh, I don't know how to say un bloque, and yes, a group
Alliance?
of, sorry,
An alliance?
yes, an alliance, a social class alliance. Yes, that's the word. Thank you. Uh, to develop this popular fight against neoliberalism. I think that's the main condition that we do not have in our country, but we are trying to build in these weeks. And I think that with this political crisis, we have more conditions to go through the population and to talk about new constitution, to talk about popular power, and to yes, to develop social organization. That is, as I say, the main condition to fight for a revolutionary project. Um that's what I could say to that question that you make, Danny.
So in the United States, we have had an anti-imperialist movement that through the decades has been beaten down. Our leaders have been harassed, arrested, disappeared, murdered, what have you. But there is still an anti-imperialist movement, and as you know, the time goes on, as our material conditions are calling for it, more young people like myself are starting to come to terms with it, starting to have our eyes open about what the United States has done to the global South, how it has underdeveloped the rest of the world to develop itself at the expense of both people in the global South and the working class in this country. But anti-imperialists do not really know that much about Peru. They can tell you about how it is underdeveloped Venezuela or sanctioned Cuba to the invasion of Nicaragua, El Salvador, Mexico, Chile, for example. Oh, they can tell you all day about Allende, but they can't tell you about, General Juan Velasco. And so, what I want to ask you is what exactly is the regional influence of Peru? What is foreign interests, and if there are any? How have they dominated Peruvian politics? And what can people here in the United States do to assist our comrades in Peru?
Well, I think that all the Latin America, South American region is in a certain way ruled by North American imperialism. So our country is not the exception. There is a great power of North American embassy in our country. There has been published a lot of conversation, a lot of yes meetings between politics, social leaders, and the representative of the American embassy. So yes, there is a power of United States in our country. Um, there are a lot of military bases. I don't know if that's the word, but yes, during the government of Alan Garcia, during the government of Alejandro Toledo, uh, a lot of several USA Army bases has been installed in our country. There are a lot of investment of United States enterprises, mining enterprises principally. And yes, there's a political power of the imperialism in our country, not only of the United States. There is also a dependence of the European Union, and more a dependency of China. But in the last decades since Fujimori, yes, the power of United States imperialism has grown and has determined um, the the political course of our country, not only inside Peru but also in all South America. You must be informed that Peru leads the Lima Group, which is this group of coordination of several countries against the political left process in America Latina. So it's not a coincidence. It's because Peru has been one of the most peaceful servants of United States government, one of the most collaborative countries with the imperialism. Yes, that's true, and we must recognize that. We must recognize also that Peru did not denounce the coup d'état, yes, against government of Evo Morales in Bolivia. Peru recognized this dictatorship of Janine Áñez, and Peru has recognized Guaido as the official president of Venezuela. So this international policy of Peru is is an expression of the political power North American imperialism has in our country. This in international policy, but also in the economical model. You must also know, and if you don't, I I can tell you that in 2011 Ollantumala won the elections in our country, and he has a leftist program of transformation that was even more radical than the program that right now Veronica Mendoza has. So the United States Embassy organized a meeting with the government of Ollantumala, and he convinced him, persuade him to forget his program, and to change his ideology orientation. So yes, there's a coercive force of the imperialism in our country, but I'm sure that that is a problem for our country is also an advantage, because if the power of the imperialism in Peru is destroyed, I think that will contribute to the emancipation of all South America. Colombia and Peru are the main countries where the United States has a political influence. So if we fight for the emancipation of our country, and the emancipation means have this political autonomy in the economical model, in the political system, in the international policy. We fight for this and against the imperialists of United States. And if we win in this fight, if we get our goals, we are going to contribute to the defeat of the imperialism in South America, and which Peruvian in United States, but not only the Peruvian, but all the anti-imperialists must do, or how you could help us is yes, making critics to the imperialism by the propaganda, by media, just like now. Yes, I think that's the way you can help us in your country. I know that it may be difficult to fight against the imperialism in the very heart of the imperialism, but every help is important to fight against this beast, as El Che Guevara defined the imperialism as a beast. Yes, to fight against these beasts. I think that every help that can be done is important, and will be recognized for all the Latin American people.
Desde las entrañas de la bestia, from the belly of the beast. And of course, the greatest assistance we can render to Peru, to Chile, to Bolivia, to Colombia, to Venezuela, to Mexico, to Haiti, to Santo Domingo, Cuba, Puerto Rico, is to make a revolution right here. The more we can tie up the Joe Bidenism and Donald Trumpism, regardless of what happens. I mean, Trump is already a sinking ship, but no matter what happens on January 20th, it's going to be unfettered, undisguised aggression against the people of Latin America in the liberation movement spearheaded by the Bolivarian process in Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba. We see Alberto Fernandez moving away from neoliberalism in Argentina. We see Bolivia, the MAS is back in the driver's seat. We see Chile and the constitutional plebiscite that was widely successful there. We see Peru. We see the people in the streets of Colombia, though right now the Colombian state still appears to be very stable. Bolsonaro's fascist leadership in Brazil is very unstable. In Paraguay, there's all types of resistance. Honduras, a narco neoliberal dictatorship. There's the opportunity that some of the Zelaya-esque forces could come back to power soon. AMLO in Mexico is by no means a revolutionary, but AMLO has the effect of neutralizing the Lima Group in neutralizing a lot of the aggression against Latin America. El Salvador, Bukele is very, very, very bad. The FMLN, is waging a comeback. Guatemala, neoliberal. So the continent, things have really swung back to the left and the more solidarity, like Ernesto Che Guevara said, we need 2, 3, 4, many Vietnams. And right now we need many, many, many Perus, and our full solidarity with the people of Peru. So last words, Kayla, and then Cesar before we sign off.
Once again, I want to thank you for coming here and speaking with us, giving us enough background so that we here in the belly of the beast, as Che Guevara calls it, can fight for this country to undo the harm in the rest of the world, and also to fight against the extreme liberalism that is a parasite onto the American working class as well. And so I just want to say final words, viva el Perú, carajo, hasta la victoria siempre.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cesar, and thank you, Kayla. The struggle continues.
Absolutely.
Never traitors, we shall overcome. Leales siempre, traidores nunca, venceremos.